Amelia Earhart was one of the most famous pilots in the world. One day, she got in her plane and never came back. We don't really know what happened. She just disappeared. And she's not the only one. All over the world, people have gone missing in strange ways. Some were young, some were rich, some were powerful. In this video, we'll look at 9 stories like Amelia's, stories of people who disappeared without a trace. Let's start in Egypt. Over 1,000 years ago, Al-Hakim was a powerful ruler who became caliphate just 11 years old and ruled for 25 years. His leadership was strange. One day, he gave gold to the poor. The next, he banned women from walking outside. Then, he prohibited shoes. He once outlawed eating grapes. His laws were confusing and sometimes frightening. People feared him, but also followed him. One night in February 1021, Al-Hakim left his palace in Cairo. He told no one where he was going. He rode out alone into the hills. And he never came back. No body was found, no blood, no signs of a struggle. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air. For centuries, people have guessed what happened. Was he killed by someone close to him? Did he plan his own escape? Or was it something no one had ever imagined? The next story takes us to England. Edward V was only 12 years old when his father, King Edward IV of England, died. As the king's eldest son, Edward was supposed to become the next ruler. But things didn't go as planned. After his father's death, Edward and his younger brother, Richard, were taken to the Tower of London. At the time, it was common for royal children to stay there before a coronation. But the coronation never came. Instead, the 2 boys were kept in the tower and slowly disappeared from public view. They were never seen again. No one knows what happened to them. Some believe their uncle, who became King Richard III, had them killed to keep the throne. Others think they may have been smuggled away in secret. In 1674, 2 small skeletons were found under a staircase in the tower. Were they the missing princes? Some believe so, but it's never been confirmed. They are known today as the princes in the tower, a name that carries more questions than facts. The next story takes us to Solomon Northup, a free black man in New York around 1808. He could read, write, play the violin, and worked hard to support his family. But in 1841, his life changed forever. He was tricked, kidnapped, and sold into slavery. For 12 years, he was forced to work on plantations in Louisiana under cruel masters. Then, finally, he found a way to get a message to friends in the North, and so they rescued him, and he returned home a free man. Solomon's story indeed shocked the nation. He wrote a book, 12 Years a Slave, which became a bestseller. He gave speeches and became a well-known voice in the fight against slavery. After a few years, he disappeared. Some believe he joined the Underground Railroad. Others think he may have died quietly, far from the spotlight. No one knows exactly what happened. No records of his death have ever been found. Next is Ambrose Bierce. Ambrose Bierce was a Civil War veteran, newspaper columnist, and a sharp, often bitter writer. He became known for his dark humor and deep distrust of authority. His most famous book, The Devil's Dictionary, turned common words into clever, grim jokes about life, death, and human nature. By the early 1900s, Bierce was in his 70s and tired of American life. In 1913, he crossed the border into Mexico during its bloody revolution. He wanted to see war up close one last time and maybe write about it. He sent a few letters from Mexico to friends, mentioning battlefields and danger. After that, he was never heard from again. No grave, no body, no witnesses. Till this day, no one knows for sure what happened. Up next, Wallace D. Ford. In the early 1930s, a man named Wallace D. Farden in Detroit. No one knew where he came from. He sold silk door to door, then began teaching African Americans about self-reliance, pride, and a new religion. He called it the Nation of Islam. To his followers, Bard was more than a teacher. He was a prophet. Some believed he was the very image of God. Within a few years, he had hundreds of followers and a growing movement. Then, in 1934, he vanished. Some say he returned to the Middle East. Others believe the FBI forced him to disappear. Some even think he planned it all from the beginning. The FBI claimed he was from New Zealand and had a criminal record, but no one ever confirmed his true identity. Till this day, no one knows his real name, his birthplace, or where he died. And yet the Nation of Islam he started still exists, still growing, still honoring the mysterious man they call the Savior. Another shocking disappearance was that of Raoul Wallenberg. Raoul Wallenberg was a Swedish diplomat. In 1944, during the final months of World War II, he was sent to Hungary. His mission was to save as many Jewish lives as possible, and he did exactly that. With fake passports called Schutzpasses, Wallenberg saved over 15,000 Jews from being sent to death camps. He faced off with Nazi officers, pulled people off trains, and created safe houses under Swedish protection. In January 1945, as Soviet troops took control of Budapest, Wallenberg was arrested by the Red Army and was never seen again. Years later, the Soviets claimed he died of a heart attack in prison, but no documents were ever shown. His family never received a body. Witnesses later claimed to have seen him alive, years after his supposed death. Did he die in a Soviet cell? Was he kept hidden for political reasons? We don't know for sure. Next on the list is Michael Rockefeller. Michael Rockefeller was the son of one of America's richest families. In 1961, he traveled to the remote jungles of Papua New Guinea to study art and culture, especially the wooden carvings made by the Asmat people. While traveling by boat, Michael and a companion became stranded miles from shore. He tried to swim to land. His last words were, "I think I can make it," but he was never seen again. Official reports claim he drowned, but locals told other stories. Some said he reached the shore, only to be killed by a native tribe, possibly in revenge for past violence. Years later, journalists and explorers heard stories that matched his description. Despite deep investigations, nothing was confirmed, and his body was never found. The next name on the list is DBCooper. In November 1971, a man calling himself Dan Cooper boarded a plane from Portland to Seattle. He looked calm, well-dressed, and polite. But mid-flight, he passed a note to a flight attendant. It said he had a bomb. He demanded $200,000 in cash and parachutes. When the plane landed in Seattle, his demands were met. He let the passengers go, then ordered the crew to fly toward Mexico. Somewhere over Washington State, he opened the rear door and jumped into the night sky with the money. The FBI searched forests, rivers, and small towns. For decades, they followed hundreds of leads, but found nothing. In 1980, a boy found $6,000 from the ransom buried near a riverbank. That was the only clue. DBCooper remains one of the only unsolved skyjackings in history, and a legend in American crime. Final name on the list is Jimmy Hoffa. Jimmy Hoffa was one of the most powerful men in America. As the leader of the Teamsters, the largest labor union in the country, he fought for workers' rights, but he also had deep connections to organized crime. Hoffa rose to the top, but then, in 1967, he went to prison for bribery and jury tampering. Even behind bars, he still seemed to control the union. He was released in 1971, under the condition that he stay away from union business. But Hoffa wasn't the kind of man who gave up control. On July 30, 1975, he went to a restaurant in a Detroit suburb to meet two men, both with ties to the mob. He was seen standing in the parking lot around 2:45 p.m. Then he disappeared. No one saw him leave. His car was found, but Hoffa was not. No body, no murder weapon, no solid leads. Over the years, hundreds of tips came in. He was buried under a stadium, jumped in a swamp, hidden in concrete. All of them led nowhere. In 1982, he was declared legally dead, but the mystery never died. Jimmy Hoffa was a man who made enemies in high places, and one summer afternoon, he walked into a meeting and never walked out. All of these stories have one thing in common: the people never came back. These stories remind us that even in a world full of cameras, maps, and answers, the questions still remain. What really happened?